Are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
Acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think
it's almost as much as we've given to Israel for 50 years.
Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people.
Wow.
And he has made one thing clear.
Right now.
He wants
Biden
to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire.
Question,
not just a piece.
Biden,
he wants
why can't
all of
you end
Ukraine.
this war?
That's what he wants.
Right. Like, that's
and then
what
you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, and by the way,
think about that. Biden has the lowest expectations.
Democratic presidential nominee predicted Biden is down 20 points and Newsom jumped 10 points.
And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as
look at
we
California.
Have. That's why
even if Newsom
does
jump in.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East.
He has a horrible
in
record.
October,
the homelessness in California.
I
saw a video
killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages.
Every year for the past
Among
10
those
years.
held and thought to still be alive are five.
How I'm going to eradicate homelessness.
Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7, to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward.
What about the American
people?
There's
3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are two different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way,
you mentioned that Trump is up in prediction market and Biden's down.
And they should
Newsom's up 10
should
points.
Be eliminated. But you've got to be careful
15%.
Using certain
What's
weapons
Michael Obama
on population centers.
Not charting. Not at all.
Who's on the list?
Going back to Ukraine for 1 second.
Trump, Biden, and Newsom, Harrison Jr.
us.
are the only real
The European nations together have spent $100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us.
They can play the Fed napping with a sympathy card.
He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money.
We're
over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them, as far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO.
I've never heard so much malarkey. I've never heard so much foolishness.
He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well.
All his responses are he's just
maybe a big ocean. But
the liberal response right now on X
a major war in Europe,
is telling. They are either screaming, saying, CNN, what are you doing? Stop doing this. Like as if the moderators can save him. And the others are saying, we're cooked.
You want to start the
They're posting pictures of the markets, the betting markets.
Putin go in and control
National
Ukraine,
Association for
and
Gun
then
Registers.
move on to Poland and other places.
Intergalactic ball missile.
He has no idea what the hell he's talking about.
Is that what he said?
By the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
Wait, so President Trump, just to follow up.
There is no end to this war.
Would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this. I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay.
Is the ratio right now?
He asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia? At a very secret meeting of the 28 states
they picked
at
a good
that time,
shade of
nations
orange
at that time.
tonight. It's
and they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that.
I'm surprised CNN didn't tweak it behind
billions of dollars came flowing in the next day or 6 months. But now we're in the same position.
Eva Fry predicting Biden will bail within a month.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6th, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day,
Joe, do you think Joe Biden still wants to be president? I know he wanted to be, but
mandated counting of electoral
votes. He and Jill want to say
As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever.
They accidentally gave Joe the downer.
Ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
Yes! You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021?
That's a double question.
I reject the premise
of that.
Well,
I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago,
get her
on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say. She's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor,
she did.
In writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it, too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
She did. The video just got released.
I'm speechless. I can't believe he had.
I sat in the dining room off
such amazing answers
for 3 hours. 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences.
Yep.
And
because of the First Amendment.
Great.
He went to
E-Bash and Super Chat says it's 3-on-1 and they're still losing.
How many cases?
Right?
Scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He didn't do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are.
He tried to get would review the cases.
He wants to let them all out,
and he should.
That's exactly
a lot of them are First Amendment cases.
Bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Man, they cut him off.
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities. You go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed.
Yeah,
when you look at all of the
jail.
They took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man on.
There we go.
And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on.
That's not true.
And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, turned over desks, turned them over statues.
What?
The idea that those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by.
What?
The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys?
Did he actually say this during the debate?
Denounce the people
this is called back to
He's asking him now?
You denounce the people who attacked that Capitol. What are you going to do?
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.